Hello, class. Specifically painting one, I just wanted to run through really quick and look at your handout and talk about the projects that I'm asking you to paint between now and the end of the semester. So the first one we have is the palette project. It says students will use the category matrix, which is this, below to choose a style, an approach, a palette, and a subject for two different paintings that are on 11 by 14 canvas panels. This means pick one item from each column. For example, you could choose a palette knife with a wood panel using the simple palette and make a landscape. So those are some of the choices you could make. And I'm saying that that's the example to the left here. This is one I did for class a couple years back. So I used the simple palette, kind of slash the glaze palette, but it's an abstracted landscape from a picture. I don't know that I used a palette knife. I think I just used a brush, but you could also just use a brush. So let's go through the little categories really quick and explain which each one is. So a palette knife style, you would try to paint the painting, at least at the start for sure, with mostly just a palette knife. The abstract or pointillist style, if you think about artists like Van Gogh or Seurat or different, modern painters, a very pointillist style, so kind of broken stroke. And then wet and wet or alla prima, that means just like we've been painting in class. Same kind of approach. You could draw with paint first. You could take any one of those approaches. Here for the approaches here, paint on a wood panel. So that's one thing that's a little bit different. So like a gesso board or masonite, or even I often like to try and paint on top of plywood. So that all works. A blue underpainting just means that you're kind of starting out, maybe making a drawing with blue underneath and kind of maybe putting in the shadows first. There is an example of that from last semester, and I think from last spring as well. Then the last maybe approach that you could try is a blind contour, where you're looking at your subject, but you're not really watching the board or the panel as you go to paint. Moving along over to the palette. So a full color palette would be just to go through and paint with your normal colors. At this point you can kind of use all your colors. In an ideal world, we would have had one more project before this where you did have full color, but I think most of us were kind of approaching that point, so it's going to be fine to just move to a full color palette. A limited earth palette. I will post a picture of this soon. Basically, there are videos also on my YouTube that use that. Limited earth, you're going to use 4 colors: black, white, alizarin crimson, and raw sienna. The simple palette is also pretty easy to use. It is the idea that you have kind of just some basic primary colors and you mix those to get any colors you need. So on this one, you don't use black. You have brown, like a burnt umber, a blue, like an ultramarine, a bright yellow, a bright red, and a white. And so it's a simple palette because if you have a color that you need, you just mix it. And you would get something that looks like black by mixing an ultramarine blue with a burnt umber. This is a palette that is made by Mark Carter, and you can find him online under the website Draw Mix Paint. Finally, for subject, I don't really want to restrict you on your subjects, I gave you some suggestions here. You can use what you have, or you can just go through and plug in whatever one you want. A still life, something from imagination, a landscape from a photo, a cityscape. If there's an artist that inspires you, you could try to paint like them. Vanitas is basically those type of paintings where you see food or money or things that are very temporary. So it's meant to reflect the brief quality of short lifespan. So that's what vanitas means. So those are the matrix. So you pick one from the green column, one from the yellow, one from the blue, and then one from the pink. And you'd mix that. And when you went to go to make the second painting, you would pick all new things and not repeat what you used before. These other two examples on the handout, this is the one from the final from last semester, and I've got one from the pallet project. So this was one from last semester. It was a still life kind of vanitas. You'll probably recognize the sculpture that Christy had set up, and I just went through and painted it. For your final, you're going to do the same thing that the painting 2 students will do, except for you will go through and paint on 18 by 24 canvas. So that was the big canvas I asked you to purchase. And you can see the grading criteria down here. I usually make it worth a little more points so that you can spend more time on it. So ideally with the palette project, you spend maybe a week or a week and a half on each one of those. And then you spend the rest of the semester working on your final. And what I'd like you to do is to go through and try to send me some thumbnails or send me a quick paragraph about what you're planning to do or what you think you might want to do. So other than that, you can leave a comment down below, or you can send me an email if you have any questions. Thanks and good luck.